Before time began, before the stars were lit, before the earth turned in silence, he was already there. Not in the form the world would one day know, born in a manger, walking dusty roads, but in glory. Eternal, limitless, unshaped by human thought. He didn't begin in Bethlehem. He existed before the word beginning was even spoken. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. These words from the Gospel of John open a door that no telescope can see beyond. A door into a realm where the Word, Jesus, was not waiting to be born but was already alive, active, creating, interceding, reigning, and yet, what was he doing? Before the foundation of the world, before Adam's breath, before Eden's garden, bloomed Jesus was not idle. He wasn't watching history like a film waiting to unfold. He was at the center of a divine masterpiece already in motion. The heavenly realm was alive, filled with blazing beings, swirling thrones, lightning storms of worship and wonder. And in the midst of it all, the Son stood. He was the radiance, the image of the invisible. Through him all things were made, things seen and unseen, thrones, dominions, principalities, powers. Every angel that would ever lift a wing was crafted through him. He was the architect. He didn't just watch creation unfold, he spoke it into being. His voice was the code behind every galaxy, every atom, every breath. The Father willed it. The Spirit hovered. But the Son released the Word, and the Word was power, but it wasn't just power that defined him. It was love, not the romantic kind, not even the selfless sacrifice we celebrate at the cross. No, this was deeper, prehistoric, eternal. The kind of love that existed before sin ever entered the conversation. Jesus wasn't just existing in heaven, he was loving. The Father loved the Son, and the Son returned it fully. This wasn't a partnership born of necessity, it was communion, a perfect, eternal joy, delighting in one another with a fullness we can't comprehend. And this love spilled outward. Out of that eternal fellowship came the very idea of creation, not from boredom, not from lack, but from overflow. Before the world was formed, he had already chosen you. Before your name was whispered in the womb, it was known in heaven, because even then Jesus wasn't just the architect of galaxies, he was the Lamb. Revelation says the Lamb was slain from the foundation of the world. That means before there was sin, before the first rebellion, the Son had already embraced the plan. He didn't hesitate. He volunteered. In that timeless place, Jesus already bore the cross in his heart, not because he wanted pain, but because he wanted you. The heavens were his temple, the angels his choir, the stars the jewels of his domain. And yet, in that eternal perfection, he saw a broken future and chose to enter it, to redeem it, to redeem you. Right now, before we continue, take a second and subscribe to this channel. This is just the beginning of mysteries we're about to uncover. Truths hidden in plain sight, stories buried beneath centuries of tradition. Let's go deeper together. Now picture this. Before Satan fell, before the serpent hissed, before the fruit was picked, there was war. Not with swords, not yet, but with jealousy. There was one in heaven, beautiful and wise, who saw the glory of the sun and envied it. Lucifer, the anointed cherub, perfect in splendor, walked among the stones of fire. But pride found a crack, and in that crack, rebellion was born. But Jesus wasn't surprised. He wasn't caught off guard. He saw the end before the beginning. He watched as the morning stars sang and the sons of God shouted for joy. He watched the Spirit stir over chaos. He watched the light pierce the dark. But he also saw the tree, the temptation, the choice, the fall, and he still said yes. Because before the world was created, before time had a name, Jesus was preparing. Not just to create, but to rescue. Heaven was not silent in those pre-creation days. It pulsed with purpose, a divine rhythm of holiness and harmony, echoing the will of the Father and the beauty of the Son. The cherubim moved with fire. The seraphim cried, "Holy, holy, holy," not from command, but from awe. Their very being was built to worship, and at the center of all adoration, there stood the Son, robed in majesty, his presence radiant beyond language. He was not waiting to become king. He already was. And what did he do? He reigned. He loved. He planned. Even then, Jesus was shaping the future, not just the galaxies or the order of atoms, but the timeline of redemption. He saw every heart that would turn away, and he mapped a way back. Every prophet's cry, every law written in stone, every shadow in the temple, they were not accidents. They were layers of a divine plan already alive in the mind of Christ. He was preparing a stage, not for performance, but for sacrifice. You see, the throne of heaven wasn't a place of detachment. Jesus wasn't far from what would come. He wasn't indifferent to the pain, to the tears, to the betrayal. He saw it all with clarity, yet moved forward with grace. In perfect peace, he watched the story take shape, not because he needed it, but because we would. And still there was joy. Before the dawn of time, Jesus delighted in the work of the Father. Proverbs speaks of wisdom as present at creation, rejoicing always before him. This wisdom is more than concept. It is a glimpse into the eternal Word, the Son, dancing at the edge of creation's light, laughing with joy as the foundations were laid. It wasn't cold engineering. It was art. Every molecule, every orbit, every law of physics bore his fingerprint, not as a technician, but as an artist, as a poet, as a lover, and in the background of it all, a plan. A mysterious, divine plan hidden from ages past yet burning within the heart of the Trinity. That the Creator would one day step into his creation, that the Word would become flesh. But why? Because love, true love, does not stay distant. From the beginning, Jesus knew he would walk among us. He knew he would weep. He knew he would bleed, and he chose to carry humanity before humanity ever existed. Can you imagine it? Before Adam's lungs filled with air, Jesus had already seen the garden. He had seen the serpent. He had seen the bite, the blame, the shame, and he saw himself hanging, not by accident, not as a plan B, but as the plan all along. The Lamb wasn't slain as a reaction. He was slain before time. In the eternal, invisible realm, the cross already cast its shadow before the sun was lit. Not from defeat, but from victory, because Jesus wasn't just preparing a creation. He was preparing a covenant, a promise written in divine ink, that no matter how far humanity would fall, no matter how dark the story would get, the light had already won. The rescue had already begun. The tomb was already empty. And in this mystery lies the power. For when you realize that Jesus existed before the beginning, and that he chose to enter our end, the entire story of your life shifts. You were never an afterthought. Your salvation wasn't improvised, it was written in eternity. Before the first heartbeat echoed in the void, the Son had already claimed you, and the angels knew. In the heavenly courts the story was whispered. The elders bowed. The scrolls were sealed. The cherubim watched with wonder as the Son, radiant in power, chose the path of suffering, not reluctantly, but willingly, because he didn't just make you. He loved you, and that love burned brighter than any star he ever formed. In a realm beyond light and time, beyond flesh and decay, he stood, not just as creator, not just as king, but as savior. In the realm beyond mortality, before a single law had been given, before a single sin had been committed, Jesus already held the answer in his heart, not as a scroll to be revealed, but as a destiny already accepted. It wasn't just creation he prepared, it was redemption. And that redemption required more than a savior. It required a sacrifice, a path soaked in blood before there was even dust, a road of pain etched across eternity by love that refused to let humanity perish. While the angels marveled and sang, while galaxies bloomed under his gaze, he was already envisioning a hill, a wooden beam, iron nails. He saw the sweat, the thorns, the spear, not in horror but in determination. Because before the world had a shape, the cross had a purpose. And still he chose it. Think about that. He created the tree from which the cross would be carved. He formed the iron that would be melted into nails. He gave breath to the men who would one day mock him, whip him, crucify him. And yet not once did he hold back. The Son did not retreat from the future. He authored it. This is not a story of tragedy. This is a story of triumph written in advance. For Jesus was not a victim of history. He was the writer of it. The Lamb slain before the foundation of the world wasn't caught by surprise. He wasn't crushed by fate. He embraced the mission before time had a name, and in that eternal space something else stirred. He prepared a people, not just the prophets or the patriarchs, but you. He saw you, your victories and failures, your doubts and desires, your scars and your silent prayers. Before your bones were formed, your soul was known. Before your first word, your name echoed in heaven, because Jesus wasn't waiting for a crowd. He was preparing for communion. From the very beginning, the goal was not domination, it was reconciliation. A God who walked with man, not ruled from a distance. A Savior who would wipe tears, not just command obedience. The plan was always relationship, and so he formed the covenant. A covenant not built on rituals and rules, but on blood, his own. A covenant that would stretch across generations, cultures, and centuries. A bridge from Eden's exile to heaven's embrace. Even before the fall, the restoration had already begun. The garden wasn't just the start of man. It was the stage of the promise. A whisper that one day the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. That whisper was a prophecy, and that prophecy had a name, Jesus. He was already poised to fulfill it, not because we earned it, not because he owed it, but because love, eternal love, never hesitated. In heaven, before the world spun or the stars shimmered, the Son stood clothed in glory. Yet in his mind, He wore flesh. He felt pain. He bore sin. Not yet in time, but already in spirit, because in eternity there is no waiting, only purpose, and his purpose was always to redeem. So while angels praised and light danced, Jesus was watching, not with dread, but with vision, seeing the rise and fall of kingdoms, the shouts of prophets, the silence of 400 years, and still the plan held firm. The cross was not a reaction to failure. It was the blueprint of victory. He didn't come to rescue us reluctantly. He came because before we ever fell, he had already decided to rise. Heaven has no clocks. Eternity doesn't measure time in hours or centuries. And yet, from before the first star blinked into existence, there was a moment already written when the Son would step into the world he himself had spoken into being. It was not a leap into the unknown. It was a mission fully seen, fully known, and fully embraced. Before the manger there was majesty. Before the cross there was communion, and before the nails there was knowledge. The Son knew he would be rejected by the very nation he chose. He saw the faces of the religious elite hardened by pride. He saw the crowds who would shout Hosanna on one day and crucify him the next. He saw the betrayal, not from strangers, but from a friend. And still, he moved forward. What kind of love makes that decision? What kind of heart chooses humiliation over honor, suffering over safety? Only one, only Jesus. In heaven, before the foundation of the world, he gazed upon humanity, not in judgment, but in longing. Not as a judge watching criminals, but as a groom waiting for his bride. He prepared not just a plan, but a place, a kingdom not made of brick and mortar, but of spirit and truth. And he didn't just prepare a throne, he prepared a path, one marked with blood, tears, sweat, and silence. A narrow road where few would walk, but many would be welcomed. And while he waited to descend into time, he interceded. Yes, even before the earth was formed, the Son stood before the Father as the mediator, the one who would speak on behalf of mankind before mankind even breathed, because redemption was not a backup strategy, it was the centerpiece. The Apostle Paul writes that God chose us in him before the foundation of the world, chosen, not by chance, but by divine design. This means your story didn't begin when you opened your eyes. It began when he closed his in surrender. Even now, the implications echo through your soul. You were loved before you were born. You were wanted before you were wounded. You were seen before you ever sinned. And Jesus didn't just watch your future unfold. He walked into it ahead of you. He entered your pain before you felt it. He carried your shame before you named it. And he defeated your death before you even feared it. This is the mystery that silences angels and awakens hearts. That before the world knew darkness, Jesus had already declared light. Before the curse, he had spoken the cure. Even in the silence of eternity, there was a cry forming in the heart of God. A cry not of wrath, but of rescue. A cry that would one day break the skies over Bethlehem and echo across Calvary's hill. And in that stillness before the story began, Jesus watched. He watched history unfold like a scroll sealed with sorrow and glory. He saw the rise of Egypt, the plagues, the deliverance. He saw the kings and the kingdoms. He saw the exile, the return, the rebuilding, the silence. And yet none of it surprised him because he wasn't reacting. He was writing, and every page pointed to one name. Every shadow pointed to one light. Every sacrifice pointed to one lamb. The cross wasn't just inevitable. It was intentional. Forged not by Roman hammers, but by eternal hands. And the hands that flung stars across the sky would one day stretch wide in surrender. For you, he knew the end from the beginning, not just because he is eternal, but because he chose to see it all and still move forward. From the throne of heaven, Jesus looked beyond the veil of time and saw every moment that would unfold, every cry of desperation, every whispered prayer, every broken promise, every soul that would run, hide, and curse the very name that breathed them into being. And he loved them anyway. Before you ever reached for him, he was reaching for you. Before you ever believed, he had already bled. Before you ever knew his name, he had already written yours. This is the weight of what Jesus did in heaven before the world began. He didn't simply exist. He didn't simply reign. He committed to creation, to incarnation, to crucifixion, and to resurrection. In that sacred pre-Genesis eternity, Jesus wasn't passive. He was active, intentional, preparing the full arc of redemption, not with reluctance, but with joy. The kind of joy only possible for a love not bound by time or circumstance. This was not just a divine idea, it was a living, burning mission. He shaped the heavens with hands that would one day be pierced. He designed the earth knowing he would be buried in it. He created the human voice, aware that it would one day be used to scream, "Crucify him." And yet, he called it good. Not because of what man would do, but because of what he would undo at. The center of all things stands a cross that predates the tree, blood that speaks before it's spilled, a lamb already victorious before the first enemy rose, and when he finally stepped into time, he didn't come to discover. He came to fulfill. Every moment had been rehearsed in eternity, every step calculated with holy precision, every heartbeat measured by love that refused to be denied. He did not come to try, he came to finish, and he finished what had begun before time began. So if you've ever wondered whether your life matters, look to the Lamb, who planned your rescue before your rebellion. If you've ever questioned your worth, listen to the voice that said yes to the cross before the first stone was laid, because the true miracle is not that Jesus came. The true miracle is that he chose to come. Long before we knew we needed him, he waited for the moment when eternity would pierce through time, when the heavens would send down the Word in flesh, when the invisible would become visible, when the eternal would become killable, and in that moment, prepared before the ages, salvation was no longer a mystery. It had a name. Jesus. He was never an afterthought. He was always the beginning. And he still is. If this truth moved you, take a moment now to share this video and subscribe. There are more revelations, more mysteries, more glory yet to be uncovered. This is only the beginning, and you were meant to walk deeper, because the one who saw you before the world began is still calling your name today.